Alright guys, so I'm gonna finish off my Spider-Man reviews and talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I've also reviewed Spider-Man Homecoming twice, so I'm not gonna review that again. So check that out and check out my other Spider-Man reviews, but as of now, this is the last Spider-Man movie I'm reviewing before Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse comes out, and I will have reviewed every one of them on this channel. Now, let's talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The movie that literally destroyed, it literally imploded on itself, this film. Now, there's a line that I'm going to say right now out of this movie that I feel like perfectly encapsulates how Sony is with these films, and with literally making this movie to a point where it was ruined, and then they made it and released it, and then a year later Spider-Man was integrated into the MCU because this movie was so far damaged, where there were so many things that built up to an inevitable next film, which is never going to happen, and we also get we get all of this, and then the movie didn't make $1 billion, which is what Sony wanted. Sony wanted this movie to make $1 billion. The original Spider-Man trilogy made a lot of money. The Amazing Spider-Man made a decently good amount of money. And then this one, they wanted to make $1 billion. And it didn't. It made $800 million, which is nothing to gawk at. But there's a line from this movie that perfectly describes what Sony did with this movie, and just they got rid of it quickly. And there's this scene where Harry Osborn is talking to like Macon and the superiors of like Oscorp, and he says to them about his father like getting rid of a lot of things, and Harry says, that is the Osborn way. Whatever's an inconvenience around here, just get rid of it, right? And that line to me perfectly describes this movie. It was inconvenient for them that they didn't make $1 billion. They made $800 million, which again is so stupid that they gawked at that. So they made not enough money to make $1 billion, and this movie got mixed critical reception. So let's just throw this movie away, throw this franchise away, throw these last two movies away that made perfectly fine money. So yeah, Sony is one of those companies that does this a lot, where like they're very good at making people upset. And I don't know what to feel about that, but let's talk about the movie itself, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, on a base level of how I feel about this movie, honestly, this has a lot of problems. It's a very convoluted movie. There's so many things that happen in this that build up to something that never, into another movie that never is released. But I would be lying if I didn't say that I love the hell out of this movie. I think this is one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. I don't know how I'm going to rank these, but this is truly one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. There are so many fantastically incredible things about this movie that are the best out of any Spider-Man movie, but then there are moments that are really stupid. So it's a mixed bag, but overall, again, like the last Spider-Man movies, I'm going to go in like the level of the plot and talk about them in plot detail, about things I really love, things I thought are really weird. So I liked how this opened up to Richard Parker. It continues on the first scene of the first Amazing Spider-Man, where Richard Parker's room is ransacked, and Peter and his parents leave and take him to Aunt May and Uncle Ben's, and he leaves. I like how in this one it shows them after they leave, they get on a plane, and there's this big fight on the plane where like they literally can't, they have to hide, they have to look over their shoulders every day now. Peter's parents, they didn't want Peter to deal with that. They wanted Peter to live a normal life. I really like how it opens with them leaving Oscorp, realizing they've got information that could be, I guess, hazardous to the world that Norman Osborn is trying to do. And I like how no Spider-Man movie opens like this. I can see why people don't like this opening with the plane, but I think that it is a cool opening. I think that it does something different, and I love that moment of, again, fulfilling these characters with the parents, where like they have this fight on the plane with this guy, and like the plane starts going down. Mary, the mother, gets shot, and Richard Parker, he fights that guy off. He uploads the data to Roosevelt, and the plane is going down, and there's this moment where like he's just holding on while the plane's going down really quick, and then he looks at his dead wife just in the next, like right next to him, and her hair's just flowing, and she's just sitting there dead, like while the plane is going down and it crashes. With the score and with that scene, it's an incredibly beautiful, haunting moment. Like, it's really truly a moving scene for me personally in the opening of this movie. And I want to speak really quick about the score. This is one of my absolute favorite scores of all time. I can listen to the score anytime. I think that Hans Zimmer is incredible in anything he does, but like this movie in particular, everything about this score I thought was incredible. And James Horner didn't come back, because he did the score for The Amazing Spider-Man 1, which was really incredible as well. But this one, like, he apparently thought this movie was dreadful and terrible, and he backed out of this. He didn't want to do the score again. But I love the score. I think this is one of my favorite scores of all time. Like, I can listen to the score anytime. It is epic. It is moving. It is everything that I wanted to be in a musical score for a movie, and I just think this is truly one of my favorite scores ever. But after we get the opening to Richard Parker falling, Richard and Mary, dead Mary, they're both falling in the plane down to Earth. I like how it cuts to Spider-Man falling to Earth, but he's like going to save the day. Like, I like how it's a symbolistic, or a piece of symbolism of like his parents falling and dying, and then Peter falling, but he's doing good, like he's rising up. I like that. I think that's really cool. And I like how he fights against the Rhino, who Alexei Saksevich, who Paul Giamatti plays. And he is one of the 3 villains that are very silly. These characters in this movie, the 3 villains, are incredibly silly. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy them, but I can see why people wouldn't like how silly these characters are. But to me, I felt like these felt like comic book characters, like the silliness of them, the silliness of the Rhino, the silliness of Electro, and the eventual silliness of like the Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, in this version. But I did like that opening with Peter fighting off Alexei in the streets. I thought that was a really cool way to open the movie. I thought it was awesome and funny how you realize that Peter is fighting him, and his graduation is going on at the same time, and Gwen is calling him, like, where are you? I think that's great. And I love how Peter makes it to the graduation eventually, after the fight with Alexei Saksevich, but then he starts seeing Captain Stacy there with Gwen and her family, like, because even though he's dead, like, he starts seeing him, and I like that. That's a really cool visual way of showing how Peter really can't live with himself, and that's a line he says in the movie. Like, he can't live with himself because Captain Stacy died for him. He saved him in the last movie from the lizard. He saved him. It was his sacrifice, and Captain Stacy said to Peter before he died, like he feels he wants Gwen to stay out of this because it could end the exact same way, like him. So I really loved showing like Dennis Leary in this movie for like brief seconds, where like he's like there, but he's not really there, and I think that's a really cool moment, or really cool moments in the movie. And of course, it's an inevitable build up to the ending, but it's a cool build up. And I like how whenever Peter goes with her to like dinner after graduation, like he's standing outside, she goes outside alone and talks to him, and he explains to her, like, I can't live with myself, like, I told your dad, like, I'd stay away from you, I gotta keep you safe, that's the only way I can keep you safe is to let you go. And like, because these characters are so good and so interesting, and the acting is so fantastic, like, you really do feel whenever they break up. Well, break up, because they get back together later, but that moment where Gwen breaks up with him, because Peter is so fixated on the thought that, like, this could happen to Gwen, like, she could be killed, like her father was, and I really like that that breakup leads because of that. Like, it's not like a dumb reason they break up. It's because he's ashamed that he's not keeping this sacrifice, and he is scared that he could lose Gwen. So I like that a lot. I think that's a great moment whenever they break up. And I like how they break up, but then Peter watches Gwen, like, at a distance a lot of the time while he has a lot on his plate. He's doing a lot of different things in the movie at the moment. But I like how even though he's not with her for a while in the movie, he's still got so much on his plate. And I like how it's like Spider-Man 2, where he kind of does the same thing, where he has so much going on, but he doesn't, like, break down because of that. It's just because he lost Gwen. He's wanting her back. And I also forgot to mention in the fight with Alexei Savage, it introduces Electro, or Max Dillon. Jamie Foxx, a great actor. Now, I don't know what to say about his portrayal of Electro. I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's terrible at all. I just think it's cheesy, just like the Rhino or the Goblin in this movie. They both, like all three of these villains, are very cheesy. And Max Dillon, before he becomes Electro, he is fine. He's just a weird creep, and that's like, I don't know, like, I feel bad for him, but I also go, like, he's just really over the top in terms of, like, he meets Spider-Man once, and then immediately he has hundreds of pictures of Spider-Man on his wall and says, like, we're best friends to himself in the mirror, like he's talking to Spider-Man. Like, it's one of those writing instances where the writing isn't that great in this movie in a lot of aspects. So it's just really silly that he just, like, it's because this movie has so much in it. They didn't want to make time to develop these characters fully, and they were originally going to, but then Sony decided to put in all of these things. Let's put in the Rhino, let's put in Black Cat, let's put in Aleister Smythe, let's put all of these little nods in place of, like, character development. And even though what we got isn't great, like, in terms of, like, the writing and the character development, I still love this movie. But there are moments like this where, like, Electro immediately is, like, in the mirror talking to himself, like, we're best friends. It's just so quick. But again, this movie has so many problems, but I truly do love it. And I really like how Harry is introduced. I like how he is introduced into the movie, and we meet Norman Osborn as well, Chris Cooper in this version, who ridicules Harry before he dies and tells him that he's got a disease that will eventually kill him, and it's hereditary, and it'll go to him eventually, or in Carrie's case, it goes way quicker. But I like that a lot. I like that it starts with Harry, this character who you don't see in the first movie because they didn't want to be like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and bring Harry in the first one. But I like how in this one, Harry is brought in a bad moment where, like, he's dealing with his father who ridicules him and just treats him bad and then dies next to him. Dies. I believe he was still alive because they were supposed to have an after credits scene in this that would have led to the third Amazing Spider-Man if we ever got it, but we didn't. But there was originally a scene where he was cryogenically, like, hit a frozen head or something like that, which is kind of silly. But so he dies, Norman dies, and he gives Harry something that will help him out with his legacy, with what's going to happen, with what Norman is going to continue on even though he's gone. So I like that a lot. And he is the true villain of the movie. Electro, like I don't mind Electro, but I feel like if we just had one character and one villain, I would have rather definitely had Harry Osborn, because honestly, he is so, with Dane DeHaan's portrayal, I think this character is really interesting and really gripping, and really, he's got such a great dilemma on his hands that this character, you meet him and then he is told that he is going to die, like he is dying with a hereditary disease that will kill him quick, and he is desperate. He was trying to find everything he needs, and I love how that makes for me anyways, a great villain, because like he is trying desperately to find any way to survive, any way to live. And I like how it eventually builds up to the conclusion, but I like how it opens up with him. The first scene with him shows him like being ridiculed and then realize he's gonna die. Like, I think that's a really, even though it's a writing problem, it's a quick way to have him become the villain quicker, I guess. But I still love the performance of Dane DeHaan. He's really incredible in this movie. Like everybody else, I think everybody else, for the most part, is pretty incredible. And I like how, like I said, Norman was supposed to return, so like he's out of the movie quickly. He's only in one scene, and then it goes to where then the next big scene for me is where Max becomes Electro. Like he goes into, like, he works at Oscorp, and like he gets shocked by the electric eels, and then he turns into Electro, which, it's based on the comic. It's not gonna be realistic in any way, and that's interesting because the first movie the first Amazing Spider-Man tried to be more realistic, even though it's still not realistic, like with Kirk Connors turning into the Lizard, but it's way more realistic than this. And this one, it felt way more over the top in terms of logically, like even though it's based on the comic, that's a comic book about Electro becoming Electro. Like, he gets electrocuted and his teeth magically formed to normal teeth, like straight teeth, and I thought that was really weird, an interesting moment. And he ends up like a lot of villains in all these Spider-Man films, where they're usually a part of a science accident that like creates them that gives them an evil form, or like they become evil because of science. So they kept that trend going with Electro. So yeah, Electro is just one of those villains where it's just like, I don't know, like he's really cheesy, and there are times where I do really like him, but I don't hate him, but I just think, oh, there's some moments that could have been done way better. I also like how Peter and Harry reunite because we don't see them, you don't ever see Harry before this, but I like the fact that they wrote it in that Peter and Harry were kids, and they knew each other as kids, and then Harry moved, and then he went to like private school, he went all across the world. Peter was dumped from his parents, and I love that scene where like they're at the river and they're both talking about their lives and what they've been up to. And I love the fact that Harry tells Peter like about his father, and like he says that he's sorry he kind of left Peter, but like he had no real choice. And then Peter just said, "You ain't got to explain anything to me, man. We both got dumped." And it's just a perfect character moment where like that line, he says we both got dumped, it is so well done because Peter and Harry both did get dumped. His parents left him, and then Harry's dad like dropped him off at boarding school. He didn't care about him. So I like that they both have that connection. I like how that makes them both more interesting, and they've got great chemistry. Like, both of these actors feel like they really are friends. Andrew Garfield and Dane DeHaan, like they really do feel like they are. I like that a lot. And then, like I mentioned about Peter and Gwen breaking up, they get back together, and it's just kind of out of the blue. But the explanation later is like, Gwen just says, we could just be friends now. But again, it's one of those writing things where it's just like, okay, that's just kind of silly. But I am so glad that they get back together because they're so good together, both of these characters. So they get back together presumably after a year, I'm thinking. I think it said a year online that they broke up and then got back together, or became friends. So, and again, that scene where they're at Times Square and they're just talking and like having funny moments, like it's so good because their chemistry is so great. Again, it's incredible, like the first movie, incredibly moving, and they're really funny together. Like that moment whenever they said they're going to be friends, so they gotta have ground rules, and then Peter's like, you can't do that cute thing with your nose where like you flick your nose, and she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? It's allergy season. Like lines like that are so great in this movie with them because their chemistry is incredible, and they just seem so genuine, and it's so funny. You really feel how their relationship is truly a real thing. Like, I like how whenever they were a couple, these two actors in real life. And then we get to this great fight with Electro. Honestly, I do like this fight a lot, even though it's a small fight. It's only in Times Square, and Peter and Electro fight off. And I like how, again, it's a silly writing thing, but it's like Electro sees Peter and he's like, or sees Spider-Man and says, "Remember me?" And he's like, "No, should I?" And then Electro gets really mad, and he's like, and Peter's like, "Oh, I know who you are. I know it's," and then he shuts his ears, and then Max just said, "It's Max," and then Peter just says, "It Max," and then he just goes, "Yes," like he really, like he just wants. I do love how Jamie Foxx does portray him in the sadness of Electro, because you really do feel like this character needs a longie. He wants a longie. He wants a friend. He has no friends. Everybody messes with him. Everybody treats him bad. Nobody cares about him. And I like how Electro is that close, or Max Dillon is that close to having a friend, and then he sees, like, in this fight that happens, like, he thinks that Spider-Man's turned on him. So it creates the fight. And I really like that, and I'm gonna keep yawning. But I really like that fight between, or the first fight between Spider-Man and Electro. I think it's really cool. I think that's awesome how the people are on the stairs and like they're gonna touch the bar, and like it's electrically connected to it's connected to Electro to where it's gonna shock and kill them. So Peter has to stop this car that flies at them, web it up, and then grab the people's wrists to get them off of the bar, not to touch it. I think that's a really awesome moment. Just the action is really cool in this movie. Really awesome in a different way too. Like, I felt like this action is different than some of the other Spider-Man movies as well. So the second fight is really good, and I like how after that, like, you realize before the fight that Gwen is gonna move to England, like, and Peter is even in more of a rut, and I like how it keeps building on Peter being stuck with all these problems that, like, he doesn't know how to fully resolve them all. And after she says she's going to England, like, he's really more upset about it. And there's this great moment where, like, that song by Philip Phillips plays, the song For You, I think is what it's called. I thought that was a really cool moment whenever Peter is in his room, frustrated that he can't figure out anything about his parents, about his father. Gwen Stacy's leaving him. His friend Harry's there. He's annoyed at how he can't help him either because Harry wants Spider-Man's blood. So there's this great moment with that song playing where Peter's trying to resolve everything. He's looking up images, looking up anything about his father he could find, while that song is playing and while he's thinking about Gwen. And I think that's just a really good moment, like in the movie. And then Harry's villain arc starts moving forward with him, like I said, with him wanting Spider-Man's blood. And even though that is silly, because there's a really silly writing moment where, like, he says to Peter, like, he drops a newspaper down, and they just watched a video with both their fathers talking about how the spider blood can regenerate somebody, can bring them back, bring them health. So Harry is telling Peter, like, I want Spider-Man's blood, and he drops a newspaper down and says, and then Peter's like, what does this mean? And then he points at his name and he says, you took his picture. And then Peter says, so what? And then Harry just says, you know him. And I'm just thinking, that doesn't make sense. But it also could make sense, though, in a way where Harry is so off the edge that he is just wanting to find any little thing to desperately find a way to survive. Like, he realizes that he needs Spider-Man's blood to survive. And I like how that scene afterward, later in the movie, where Peter goes as Spider-Man to Harry and tells him he can't give him his blood because it could become something worse. And it will in the end of the movie. But I like how that builds on Harry becoming this more, again, this tragic character, because he starts out in the movie, like, again, ridiculed by his dad. His dad dies in front of him. He's got a disease that is going to kill him, and he has no idea what to do. I love that. And he's just trying to find anything to try to survive. I think that's a really cool way to make the villain quickly become the villain. And like I just love that moment when Peter's literally begging Harry before he has Spider-Man come later, but like he's begging Harry like don't turn your back on me, please Peter. I don't want to end up like my father, Peter. Like that acting moment too where he says that is really great too. And I love that. And then I love the moment later where Gwen Stacy is the only one who knew who Max Dillon was, and she looks him up on the computer, and all the Oscorp guys like are gonna get her. Like they've realized that because they erased him away from everywhere, Max Dillon, because he died, and they don't know where he is. So I like how Gwen Stacy is running away, and she sees Peter in Oscorp building after he talks to Harry about Spider-Man's blood, and then we get this cool scene where Gwen is on the elevator, and then Harry's just right there, and he says, Gwen Stacy, and then she just jumps and says, oh, sorry, like, and then he mentions, like, he's his friend, Peter's friend, and I love how Harry immediately talks to Gwen about Peter and how they're together, and, like, I love the fact that line where Harry just says to her, but that's why he needs you, right? To make his choices clear. And like it's a moment where like Harry the character is looking at her in an empathetic way, but looking at her in a way where like that's like he doesn't know that Peter is Spider-Man, but he's looking at Gwen from that way of like he needs to decide, but he like maybe he can get Gwen to help him out to get Spider-Man's blood, like to get Peter to get Spider-Man's blood. So I like that moment a lot. I think that's really good. And then I want to talk about this really stupid scene that I can't defend. Because in Ravencroft, Electro gets taken there, which is like a super secret prison like that all these supervillains are going to be at, or we're going to be at in these films, if we got any more, but we didn't. And there's this really dumb scene that is really hard to defend where like Dr. Kafka, this doctor who becomes a villain, I think, in the comics, he's listening to classical music while he has Electro being like tortured, and it's really silly and really dumb. And Electro's got that line, "Don't you know I'm Electro?" Like it's a really really cheesy moment, and then it's weird. It goes from that probably the worst scene in the movie to one of the best scenes in the movie afterward, where Peter comes home and Aunt May's there, and she's looking at this wall that Peter has conducted of like his dad and all these clues where he is. And I love this moment between Peter and Aunt May, and Sally Field is incredible in this moment, where she's, like I said, she sees the board of like all the stuff, the map like leading to his dad, like he's got question marks everywhere, like he's trying to find a way to figure out what's going on. And then throughout the movie so far, like Aunt May hasn't told him the truth about his father, and I like how that's the opposite of Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, where Peter had to tell her the truth about Uncle Ben. In this one, Aunt May has to tell Peter the truth about his parents, and I love this line, or this whole like thing that she says, where she says, "The truth is that your parents left you on our door, left you years ago on our doorstep. You were this little boy whose whole world was turned upside down with no explanation. We did the best we could. Your Uncle Ben and I mean, who else is going to help you? Your father? No. I was the one who wiped your nose, made you brush your teeth, and do your homework, and do your dirty laundry. Me, your stupid, non-scientific aunt who doesn't know how to make ends meet, taking nursing classes to cover up for Ben being gone, and I can't do this without Ben. And you're dreaming about your perfect father who was never here? No, you're my boy. I don't care what anybody says, you're my boy, and I won't tell you the truth." And I love how Peter just, like, she starts crying, and Peter goes up to her and says, "I know, you're my everything. Please, May, I need to know." And like she does tell him, she tells him the truth that like they think that Peter's dad was a traitor, and he took away the blood of the spiders like as a way to like do it for money, like to go and sell it. And Peter's just like, "That's not right. That's not right. I don't believe that." And then Aunt May says, I don't believe it either. Like, I tried to find some way, some clue, some hint. Um, and I love that, where Peter looks into the mirror at himself and just is in sadness of like, is this the truth? Like, my dad just did this for the money. He left everybody for money. Even though you get the resolution soon, but that is just a great, incredible moment. One of the best moments in the whole movie. Best acting moment. One of the best acting moments in the whole movie. And then Peter goes, this is how it's resolved with the father thing. Peter goes to a secret subway, which is silly. He goes to the secret subway that his father took, the Roosevelt, and that's where the computer is, the Dust Steel computer 10 years later, that has the clip of his father that he said during the beginning of both the Amazing Spider-Man movies, where he said that thing on the camera. I think that's really, even though it's silly, I think it's really a cool emotional moment whenever Peter goes and finds that footage of his dad and tells him that the spider's blood was his own, and without his bloodline, Oscorp cannot complete the sinister things they're going to do, which you don't know what they're going to do, really, because it's not resolved in this movie, and it's never going to be. But I like how that moment where the dad's just like, I'm sorry, people are going to think that I'm a monster, and I wish I had more time, and if I never see my boy again, I just want to say I'm sorry to him. And that's just a great character moment for Peter, where he finally gets the truth about his father. Like, he did all this to save Peter, to save the world, like to run away from these monsters that were going to create worse, horrible things. And I think that's just a great moment. Even though it's in a silly location, on an underground train that comes up out of nowhere. But still, it's really, really good. And then I love this scene where Harry goes to Electro. Like, Harry gets fired from Oscorp because Mencken, this other guy in command, makes it to where it looks like Harry killed Max Dillon, like he killed it and then covered it up. But then Mencken's been doing it all on the sidelines, like he's the one puppet mastering this whole thing. So like Harry gets fired for no reason. Harry loses everything. So Harry is dying. He lost his position at Oscorp. He has no connection to anything anymore at Oscorp. He wants to find some way to live, but then he lost that connection too to find anything helpful at Oscorp. So he goes to Electro. And I love that moment where he's looking on the little computer on the desk, and there's a moment where Electro earlier in the movie is talking to Kafka, and he says, like, don't you know I'm Electro? That scene where, like, his face pops up on the screen right here, and Harry's looking down, so it's Harry's face right here, while it's Electro's face on this side, showing both villains at once, and it just was a really cool visual moment of him looking out of the computer, seeing that villain, seeing him, seeing them, how they can connect and become... both of them can go and fight Peter. I like that a lot. I think that's a really cool moment. And I love whenever he goes to Electro at Ravencroft. And based on an acting moment alone, this is an incredible moment where Harry goes up to Electro and says, like, who he is, and Electro's like, why do you need me? You own the place. And then Harry says, like, I got kicked out. Like, I need you to help me out. And I love the fact that he says, please, Max, like, Max, we don't have much time. Max, I need you. And then I love the fact that since Max is a character who just wants a longing for something, he wants somebody, Harry just says, I need you. And Max just says, you need me? And then he's like, yes, I need you. I need you, please. My life depends on it, please. And I love how he tasers Electro just to give him more energy, and he says, I need you, please, please. Max, I know what it's like to be thrown away. Please, I need you. And Electro gets out of that little prison thing he's in and, like, shocks everybody, and then they join together. And I love that moment of just them both, like, even though it's silly writing, I like that they joined together because Peter wronged them both in a way. Like, it's just a really interesting way of having these two characters connect. I really love that a lot. So Harry goes back to Oscorp with Electro, and then he becomes the Green Goblin. Like, he takes the venom, and then he starts turning into this green monster type of character where it's on his skin. Like, it's more like the comics where, like, this character the Osborns in the comics become, like, their skin becomes green, like they literally are green, and it's not like in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man where the Green Goblin was just a costume. I think that's a really cool touch as well. So Harry becomes the Goblin, which is a really cool scene with flashing lights of him climbing up to the Goblin suit, and then regenerates, and then it cuts to like Gwen and Peter having that great moment right before the battle where like they're on top of the bridge, and it said "I love you" etched in spiderweb. Like that was a great moment between them both, and I love the fact that Peter says now like I'm gonna go with you to England. We're gonna go together. There's crime in England, right? Like Jack the Ripper, and they never caught him. It's just a great moment between the two, and then it becomes the final fight where Peter and it's Spider-Man versus Electro, and I like the fact that this action scene between them both is really incredible, really cool, really awesome. How they move, how they fight, how Electro flies through anything that's electrical, while Peter Parker is flying all around trying to get him, but he can't because Electro keeps going through electric currents. Like that's such a cool moment. But I guess this is a thrilling thing too, but I also think it's kind of dumb that they added in the plane scene where like the plane is flying, like there's planes up in the air in New York that are flying, and like since the power's out, they don't have the coordinates to avoid other planes, so they almost hit each other, two planes, and that's it, and that ends. I don't know why that's in the movie where it shows the two planes about to collide. It just I guess ups the tension, but it's just out of nowhere. But we have that great, like I said, the fight still is incredible between between Spider-Man and Electro, them fighting around in that area that's like in that one final area. That's really cool. I forgot the name of it, but the grid, like they're fighting in the grid. That's a really cool place, and I like how Gwen helps him out. Like she's the one who lights it to where they have a conductor to where Peter uses his webs to conduct back energy to kill Electro. Like Electro dies, and I don't really think he truly died. If we had more movies, he would have been another one, I think, but he dies, and then Harry Osborn comes out, and he realizes that Peter is Spider-Man, and this is where Harry gets cheesy in the movie. And I mean, again, it's like it's easy to argue it, but also this character is deranged and messed up, so it's like he would be over the top like this. I guess that makes sense, but like Harry comes over as the Goblin, he comes and sees Peter as Spider-Man with Gwen, and realizes that you took away everything from me. I'm going to take what your thing that you love away from you is, and he takes away Gwen, and they go up to this clock tower where Peter's chasing her, and he's like, let her down, Peter, let her down, Harry, let her down. And then Harry just drops her, and then Peter grabs her up in the air, and they both fall into this clock tower, which is really a cool place. Like this is an awesome ending place for a fight. This is an incredible location. I love this location where Peter and Harry are fighting in this small location while Gwen is on clock gears, like in this clock tower. Peter lays her down, gives her a web to hold. He's fighting Harry. They get into a vice where Peter is choking Harry out, but Harry is pushing Peter to where his leg is stuck in the clock gears, where if he moves his foot, then that means that it will cut the web that will kill Gwen. She will fall down. And that moment and they hold on it in a fantastic way, an incredible way, where like Harry's being choked, trying to push Peter. Peter has his foot in the gear that if he moves it, he will die. And it is an incredible moment where you just, like, it's just so incredibly thrilling, because if you know the comics, you know that Gwen Stacy dies, and that moment where it's just, you're sitting there. I was at the edge of my seat in the theater, and I still am every time I watch this movie, whenever they have that pause moment of him holding on with his foot to have that gear not change to break the wire, or to break the web. And what do you know, he keeps it in there, but it still breaks, and it makes the web snap. And that shot of Gwen going and falls is incredible. Harry gets knocked out, and then Peter flies down, sees Gwen, sees her fall. He shoots a web through all these gears that are falling down with them, with the debris. He grabs her on the chest with the web, she falls right onto the ground, slams her head on the ground, and he goes up. And then, or it goes down and finds her, and it's like, Gwen, are you okay? And she's dead, obviously, and like he goes, he like holds her for a minute. He's like, hey, Gwen, and he starts crying. He's like, stay with me, and then he just like starts crying and screaming like for Gwen, like saying that I can't do this without you, like she's gone. And Andrew Garfield is truly incredible in that moment where he's losing it after she's gone. Like that, him just crying over her body is so great. It's an incredible moment. And then him going to the funeral with Aunt May, then Aunt May leaving, and then Peter staying at her grave through all the seasons, I think is a really, really emotional, touching moment with the score as well. And then it ends. The movie almost ends with this lead up where Harry's talking to that guy from the first movie, the guy in the shadows, Mr. Fears, and he's like, "We're gonna get worthy candidates together to since Spider-Man's gone." And then Harry's like, "We'll get people. We'll get Alexei Saksevich first, who is the Rhino, who we can give him a Rhino suit, and he'll be one of the first candidates for the Sinister Six, which we never get the movie in this continuity for." So we're never gonna need any sequels to this movie, but we get that lead up to the next movie, which is just kind of it is what it is. Like they were gonna make more movies, but Sony's just greedy, and they're like, oh, this didn't make enough money, so it even made good money, but it didn't make enough good money to where we're gonna make another sequel. We're just gonna trash this whole thing. So that little ending stinger with like Harry talking to Mr. Fears about the Sinister Six is such a weird thing, because you know it's not going to happen ever. So it's just dumb that they did that. But then I love this moment where Peter, like Spider-Man has been gone for 5 months now, and Peter is with Aunt May just listening to the TV, and like they said, "Where's Spider-Man? Like we need to see him. Like he's gone." And then I love the fact that Aunt May says, "Oh, I'm sorry about that spider guy," and like, I'm thinking that she knows he's Spider-Man because earlier in the movie she mentions to a line to him saying like, people even hurt the people we love, and like she says a lot. She says and gives a look to him earlier in the movie like she thinks he's Spider-Man. She even does that in the first movie too, but you would never get the resolution if she knows, but I think she knows. But I love that moment after Peter turns off the TV after they say, "Where's Spider-Man?" And she says, "Peter, where are you going?" And then he just says, "I don't know. I don't know." And then she looks at him and just says, "Oh, I almost forgot. I've got Uncle Ben's stuff right here. I'm just moving it." And he's like, she says she's got it with her. And he says, "You're throwing his stuff away?" And she goes, No, I can't. It's a part of me, but I'm going to move it. And I couldn't throw it away. I couldn't do that. And I'm just finding a better place for it. I'm going to look at it one last time and put it in a place where it belongs." And that line is one of my favorite lines in the whole movie, like, because then Peter goes and watches Gwen's whole graduation speech on a USB drive that apparently they made, which makes sense, but like, she has this speech where like, from the beginning of the movie, where she says it's like she's talking to Peter herself, even though she isn't, but she says like, "No matter how hard it gets or how lost you feel, you must promise me to hold on to hope. Keep it alive. We have to be greater than what we suffer. And my wish for you is to become hope. People need that. And even if we fail, what better way is there to live?" And then it ends where she says like, "As we look around here today at all the people who help make us who we are, it feels like we're saying goodbye. But we will carry a piece of each other into whatever we do next to remind us of who we are and who we're meant to be." And it's just one of my favorite moments in a movie ever, where like she's saying that on the video, but like it's speaking to him after she's gone, and it's just incredible. And that brings him to go and be Spider-Man again. And then, this is a moment where people hate this movie, but there's this kid from earlier in the movie that he helped save, named Jorge, or like it's spelled Jorge, Jorge. Like, I don't know, like it's Spanish, I guess. I don't know how to say his name right, or I can't pronounce it right. But the kid, this kid from earlier in the movie, he goes and dresses up as Spider-Man and goes out to fight the Rhino, who goes out and wrecks havoc as Spider-Man's gone. And I love the fact that even though people could say it's lazy writing and dumb, that like the kid, only seen once for a couple seconds in the movie, comes back at the end and fights the Rhino, or goes out and stands up against the Rhino. I like that because it's like Spider-Man made an impact on kids, and like this kid goes out and fights. Or, I mean, goes and stands up to the Rhino. He wouldn't actually fight him. He's got machine guns. But he goes out wearing the suit, stands up to him, and then, like, he says to him, like, where's Spider-Man? Like, where's your Spider-Man? And, like, you hear, like, the web, and then, like, the cops look up, and then, like, there's a good, an incredible emotional turnaround where, like, the music score swells, and, like, behind the kid is really Spider-Man, and he's there, and he's thankful for the kid standing up for him, and standing up to the Rhino, and tells him to go back to his mom and go be safe. And Peter goes to the Rhino and fights him off, and that's how it ends. But it's just a great moment where, like, Peter Parker comes back from being to be Spider-Man after this loss. Like, he lost Gwen Stacy, and, like, she brought him out of it even though she's gone. But it's an incredible moment where, like, he goes and saves the kid and fights off the Rhino. Like, it's the final, like, moment with him is just incredible. I really love that, and I love how it ends. I think that's a great way to end the movie. So what I'm saying is that I love this movie. I think this movie is one of my... It has problems. It does. It really, truly has problems. I'm not going to deny that at all. There are problems I have with it. Like I mentioned, about the villains being silly, about the writing being really weird, and I don't care. I love this movie despite that. I love these characters. I love the score. I love the emotion. I love the action. Everything about this movie is incredible. And, well, I say that, but not everything is. But you know what I mean. It's an imperfect movie that's a perfect movie for me. If that makes sense. Like, the stuff that I complain about isn't even bad. To me, it's just like, oh, it's just underwhelming. Okay. But I truly do love this movie. I don't care how, like, it's not even a terrible movie like people say. Some people say it's a terrible movie, and I think, no, it's an average movie. It's got problems. It's got great things about it. That's what critics thought, too. It's just an average movie. But I love it. I think it's incredible. And I wish that we got more Andrew Garfield movies, but fortunately we won't, and he was a great Spider-Man for 2 movies. He was incredible. So was Emma Stone, and so were all the other people involved. So, I really loved this movie rewatching it. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me down below what you think of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't care if it's good or bad, because I noticed there's good and bad thoughts and responses to this movie. So, thank you guys so much for watching.